Have you ever thought about buildings not just as, places to be, but as actual monuments,
Yeah.
built by the workers themselves, for themselves, and focus just as much on mind as on body?
That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? That's what we're diving into today, this fascinating dual history in Great Britain.
Hmm.
We're looking at the miners' institutes, or the stutes as they were often called,
Right.
and also the Pithead baths. Two sides of the same coin, really.
And these institutes, they mostly came about between the 1880s and, say, the 1930s. What made them so different?
Well, the key thing was they weren't charity, not handouts. They were built by the mining communities, funded by them initially. It was this quite radical idea that workers doing the toughest jobs deserved, top-notch places to learn and socialize.
So real hubs then.
Oh, absolutely. The cultural and political heart of these towns, they had amazing libraries, reading rooms, lots of history, politics. Aneurin Bevan, founder of the NHS.
Yeah, of course.
He actually credited the library in Tredegar, the miners' library there, for basically forming his entire intellectual grounding. It's quite something.
Wow. So serious places for learning. But not just serious, right? They were social centers, too.
Definitely. They had everything. Theaters, sometimes cinemas, games rooms, snooker, billiards, dominoes were huge. And things like public lectures, political rallies, even music competitions, the Eisteddfodau, especially strong in Wales.
So these places must have been quite substantial.
Some were enormous. 4 or 5 stories high. Think about Oakdale Institute. It even had a swimming pool inside.
A swimming pool. Incredible.
Yeah.
But how did they afford all this initially? You mentioned grassroots funding.
Yeah, it started locally. Miners paid a subscription, like a small part of their wages, every week. Compulsory, usually.
Okay, truly built from the ground up. But then there was a big change around 1920. The government stepped in.
That was pivotal, the 1920 Mining Industry Act. It set up the Miners' Welfare Fund. This was huge because it wasn't just relying on the miners' subs anymore.
Right.
It was funded by a levy of tax, basically on every ton of coal produced, plus royalties. So suddenly, you had this centralized, state-backed system, a kind of democratic redistribution of the industry's wealth, funding worker welfare. That allowed for massive expansion.
And that state backing, that financial muscle, it allowed them to tackle the other side of miners' welfare too, the physical side. Which brings us to the Pithead baths.
Exactly. And these weren't just functional sheds. They were seen as, well, one critic called them a colossal social experiment taking architectural form, designed specifically for the working class, with modern aesthetics in mind.
I read they were quite innovative architecturally, not just copying older European models.
No, the Miners' Welfare Committee, the MWC, came up with its own specimen design around 1925-26. The big innovation was absolute separation.
Separation.
Yeah, a dirty side for your pit clothes and you coming straight from the coalface, and a completely separate clean side for your normal clothes and the clean miner.
And how did you get from one to the other?
Through the showers. It was mandatory. An obligatory shower filter pathway, they called it. You couldn't bypass it. This focus on hygiene, on light, space, and air actually got high praise from modern architecture critics like Pevsner.
And the impact must have gone way beyond just the miners themselves, thinking about the homes.
Oh, profoundly. We have testimony from miners' wives, like Elizabeth Hart in Wigan, describing the constant back-breaking work of trying to keep coal dust out of the house. It was endless.
So the baths changed that.
Completely. It was called a domestic revolution, leaving the dirt at the pithead. Catherine Bruce Glazier poetically called them white shining temples of health. It massively reduced the burden on women, respected the whole family unit. It shows how architecture can drive real social change.
That link between innovation and solving real-world problems is always fascinating. Actually, speaking of solving complex problems, this deep dive is brought to you by Embersilk. If you need help figuring out where AI agents could make the biggest difference for your business, or even just for you personally, maybe AI training, automation, or software development, you should check out embersilk.com for your AI needs.
So getting back to the scale, by the mid-50s, this MWC program was huge. Over 600 buildings across the country, serving something like 676,000 workers.
A massive network. But then, inevitably, things changed. The coal industry's decline in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that hit hard. Those subscriptions, the core funding for the institutes especially, they just dried up as the pits closed. And these big, often quite old buildings, they had enormous running costs. You mentioned Easington, a £25,000 annual electricity bill back then. Just unsustainable for many.
A sad decline. But some survived.
Some did, yeah. And ironically, their decline sometimes highlighted just how well built they were. Some still function as community hubs today. Easington Social Welfare Center, for example, still has its original sprung wooden dance floor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently it was used in the film Billy Elliot. And professional dancers, like from Strictly Come Dancing, have used it for practice. So this incredible piece of social history is still alive, still being used.
That's a fantastic legacy. It really shows the lasting value of that kind of community investment.
Absolutely. And if you think about the bigger picture, the whole system, the institutes, the baths, funded by that levy on coal, it really was a sort of blueprint, wasn't it? A precursor vision for the wider welfare state that came later in the UK. It demonstrated that investing systematically in workers' health and culture, funded by the industry itself, could work, and work brilliantly.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If they could fund these amazing community assets with a levy on coal almost a century ago, well, what are the modern equivalents? Are we using the wealth generated today to build the kind of social infrastructure people truly need? Something to think about. Anyway, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please do subscribe to the show. Hey, and maybe leave us a 5-star review if you have a moment. It genuinely helps other people find us. Thanks so much for tuning in.